Hello there guys and welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to take a look at Immortal Abomination and its core mechanics and my kind of initial evaluation of the champion without having seen any of the gameplay and any of the numbers and actual real damage output. Based on ability description, before we get to the video, I definitely must shout out Katie Candy, whose video kind of like screenshot slides I'm using because Kabam has not yet released full ability description for Immortal Abomination, but they have provided it to CCP members. I messaged Katie Candy and she was obviously kind enough to let me use her pre-prepared slides in my video to go over my own thoughts about the champion. So, Immortal Abomination, and the champion's all about poison. There's absolutely nothing else to say. He's one of those Archangel-esque type of champions. If opponent is going to be immune to poison, tough. You're not going to be able to do much. And you really don't want to use Abomination in any matchup at all whatsoever where opponent shrugs off debuffs or is immune to poison. At the same time, poison immunity is one of most frequently seen immunities in the game, and that is definitely not a great thing for Abomination. However, on the flip side, I think that by the game growing the way it has, that is not a problem anymore, because far we are from the days where one champion fits every single scenario, and what we are at large currently looking for are specialists who do certain things the best and who work maybe not always but often enough for them to be reliable additions to your roster. And realistically, not even Quake or Ghost is the champion that you're going to bring in 100% of the scenarios. Currently the game has gotten so much more complex that having very high efficiency specialist champions is probably the best thing you can do for yourself. And with that, I personally do really like the makings of Immortal Abomination. I don't like the way it looks, that is a pure nightmare fuel, but as a super poison reliant champion, he might be the best counter for Acid Wash. He might be one of the most effective healing suppression counters, and there might be plenty of other things that he does absolutely fantastically. Now, he obviously does have high damage potential by the looks of it, and it's all tied to poison damage. He also has a mechanic that's extremely similar to Omega Red's Death Field mechanic, but here's a trick. Part of the reason Omega Red's Death Field mechanic is so effective is because it doesn't rely on being able to place a debuff on opponent at large. It helps to lock in the spores, but you can still do the spore damage without being locked in. And most importantly, there's nothing really in the game immune to it. Now, Abomination will not enjoy the same privileges. Therefore, in order to be able to perform at the level that Omega Red has, he really needs to put in a lot of damage. Unfortunately, on paper, if you compare Omega Red to Abomination, honestly, Omega Red seems a lot better as a champion. But Abomination might have insane damage output, and that is something that we have yet to see. Right, so let's start with his abilities. So his first passive is take 100% less damage from poison, so he's not immune to anything, he's not immune to poison, but you don't take any damage from poison unless opponents have increased poison efficiency or whatever, right? And additionally, the recovery reduction from poison is 50% less effective. So that would be effectively as if you are playing against an opponent who has maxed out Despair Mastery. Each debuff reduces your regen rate by 15%. So in kind of like a standard default set, you still will be able to net some decent heal from Suicide Masteries. Right, Corrosive Poison. Contact with the opponent has 15% chance to inflict them with a poison debuff, dealing basically X amount of direct damage over 25 seconds and reduce the heal. If opponent reach 10 poison debuffs, they are converted into Acid Burn passive, dealing a lot of damage over 5 seconds and preventing additional poison effects. So this Acid Burn definitely seems sorry about that, like a very potent damage dealing ability. And similarly to Airwalker, where you try to stack up these Dark Tide. Yes, Dark Tides, I believe. You basically try to stack up to 10 poisons and to combine them into something a lot stronger. Now, it's not permanent, and that only lasts 5 seconds. However, when striking an opponent suffering from Acid Burn, all attacks are unblockable, so you will be able to completely smash through blocks and deal a burst of 1500 physical damage. Now, that is quite a significant amount of extra damage for you to gain. When triggering Acid Burn, Abomination inflicts Petrify debuff for 5 seconds, reducing regeneration and ability power rate by 60%. Now, that is also definitely very handy, because with having had a few poisons, that Petrify will automatically immediately reverse the healing. So Abomination should, in theory, be super potent heal reverse champion as well, provided opponents can have debuffs placed on them and provided opponents' regeneration rate can be modified. But you should be able to reverse that regeneration extremely quickly with Immortal Abomination. Self-Inflicted Poisons. Now, this is actually where it kind of gets even a bit more interesting. Every 10th basic attack landed by either champion inflicts Abomination with an indefinite poison debuff, dealing 0 damage, but still triggering willpower heal at the same time. Each poison on Abomination grants 182 physical resistance, so it's not a massive amount, but definitely makes him quite a bit chunkier. However, you can still bypass that with critical hits. While Abomination is poisoned, each time he blocks an attack, the opponent is inflicted with a weakness debuff, reducing attack rating by 30% for 2 seconds. Now, first and foremost, this could be really useful for times when you just have to inflict debuffs. Second of all, Alliance Quest Map 7 has a lane titled What's Yours is Mine, where basically every time you inflict a weakness debuff, you gain Substantial Fury and unlock your true damage. So I do have very high suspicion that Abomination could potentially be an insanely useful Map 7 champion, because he will be able to deal with Acid Wash, and also What's Yours is Mine lane, which can be quite annoying. So I am actually low-key looking forward to this, because I think it could be helpful for my personal path in Map 7 as well. But inflicting weakness on every block, it's very potent. That weakness isn't long, and primarily you're going to get a benefit from it blocking like War Machines level 1s and Falcons level 1s and Punisher 2099 special attacks, because there are a lot of special attack hits in a very quick succession, and you're going to be able to inflict a whole bunch of debuffs. In addition to that, if you are running Despair Mastery, poisons, these weaknesses plus your Petrify will very quickly be able to absolutely shut down any possible opponent's healing, which is another way how he can mitigate a lot of regeneration or reverse it. So that seems quite useful, to be honest. And on activation, inflict a non-stacking Petrify debuff on special one. So on activation, inflict a non-stacking Petrify debuff for 25 seconds, reducing regeneration and ability power rate by 20%. So additional Petrify, not too bad. Abomination inflicts himself with 4 poisons during this attack. This is increased to 6 if his Toxic Aura is active. Cool, activate your Toxic Aura and get a whole bunch of extra poisons on yourself. Those extra poisons later on will be used like as a sort of a currency, but in the meantime, you can also look at it as plus 700 physical resistance, basically. And again, that just makes him kind of beefier. Right, Special Attack 2, however, is where the money is at. Special Attack 2 is where you can draw similarities to Omega Red. Right, Special Attack 2, activate Toxic Aura for 10 seconds. While active, consume 1 poison debuff on Abomination every 2 seconds to keep the aura paused. Consumption is paused during the opponent's special attacks. So this is kind of like Omega Red mixed with Terrax Deathfield, where basically you activate it and then you try to keep it active as long as possible. During Toxic Aura, standing near the opponent inflicts 1 poison debuff every second, dealing, again, X amount of damage over 10 seconds and reducing health recovery by 30%. Keep in mind your goal always is to get to 10 poisons, combine them, and go for like basically your Hulk Smash moment, or in this case Abomination Smash. So that will significantly help you with that by inflicting a lot of extra poisons just by being near to the opponent and just smashing into them. Each stack of Toxic Aura beyond the first increases the speed that it inflicts poison by 25%. The Toxic Aura can stack up to 4. Now, so you can double it. There is a way to extend it even further with the level 3, but I think the basic kind of rotation for a champion will be get nearly to a special 3, drop your level 2 and try to raise to another level 2, or possibly just drop a level 1 to gain extra poisons placed on yourself and be able to pause this Toxic Aura field for even longer, because remember that gives you 4 or 6 poisons. So that could be kind of like the main way people will use Abomination, just kind of like go completely aggro. Now special 3 inflicts acid burn, so that's cool, dealing a lot of damage for 5 seconds. Each stack in the Toxic Aura inflicts 1 additional acid burn effect, and this is where it could potentially ramp up crazily high in some very long fights. If you have Toxic Aura or double stacks of those active and you somehow manage still to get to level 3 and drop that, and you should be able to go completely bananas with that extra energy damage you get from Toxic Aura and Acid Burn. Until the next time the Toxic Aura expires, it becomes enhanced, increasing the time it takes to consume a poison by 0.5 seconds. This enhancement cannot stack but can be activated even while the Toxic Aura isn't active yet. So you can kind of put it away. And this realistically is something that you're likely going to do in really long fights only. Now, signature ability for him does sound pretty much mandatory in order to be able to kind of like get to your rotations more quickly and more efficiently. First and foremost, Self-Inflicted Poison stack limit is increased to 12, and Abomination self-inflicts 3 poisons at the start of the fight. So you immediately get 3 poisons at the very start, and you can stack up more before you activate that level 2 and you start consuming those self-inflicted poisons. Additionally, Poison, Petrify, and Acid Burn effects last 30% longer, and this is the key aspect. The 30% longer on Acid Burn is quite significant because 5 seconds Acid Burn, that's not really kind of like the longest duration there. And I think being able to maximize the time you have Acid Burn active is kind of like very, very important. So yeah, I do think he's going to be one of those champions where science champions typically come out. They always have mandatory Sig 200 requirement, and I think that Abomination is going to have something similar to that. Maybe not Sig 200, but he will definitely need Awakened ability. And when it comes to synergies, there are some of the cooler ones. With Venom the Dark Ore Man thing, he can get access to Armor Break debuff, which again, in itself, it's a tiny armor break, but it's just meant to for you to have the ability to inflict that armor break, possibly for you to be able to poison Mysterio or poison Emma Frost or something, right? Honestly, symbiote buffs gain 15% duration, and you give opponent less power when you throw special attacks. That's nothing too incredibly crazy there. But here we have one with Abomination. Each time a poison debuff expires or is removed from the opponent, there is a 5% chance to inflict an end rate debuff for 3 seconds, preventing power gained when struck. Now this, again, on the surface might not kind of sound the craziest, but now Abomination with Red Guardian Synergy really does output a lot of poisons, but especially here, if it does have a chance to trigger when you combine 10 poisons into Acid Burn, then you pretty much will have a 50-50 shot in gaining that 3-second end rate. I don't know how useful it's going to be, but I do feel that there's going to be plenty of chance to trigger it. So it's definitely worth testing out. Now, another synergy with Abomination, Abomination synergy with Red Skull. The basic attacks required to self-trigger self-poison are reduced by 2. This is super useful. Unfortunately, Red Skull sucks, so you will not likely use this synergy ever, unless you want to showcase this ability. But yeah, it's a very good synergy, but it's Red Skull. And you have another one with King Groot. Abomination plus 15% potency in personal poison and acid burn effects. That's awesome. That's very great. And King Groot actually has quite good one during cooldown. Gain 25% chance to inflict poison debuff, dealing 30% of modified attack over 12 seconds each time a contact is landed. So that is quite decent. Additionally, the chance of to gain Fury charges during cooldowns increased by flat 11%. And overall, it could actually beef up King Groot's damage output to substantial amount. King Groot has been getting some synergy love, hasn't he? And that is pretty much it, right? So, again, I do think that potential for crazy poison damage definitely is there. And all of that damage being tied to poison is not necessarily a good thing. It definitely isn't, because it is the most common immunity. But for me, I don't think it's quite a deal breaker either anymore, because as I mentioned at the start of the video, I think that these specialist champions that do 1, 2, or 3 different things but really, really well are becoming kind of like the new norm. You don't really see new champions that are great everywhere getting added. So yeah, I definitely look forward to it. Both of the champions actually look quite interesting, intriguing from the initial glance, and hopefully they also are worthwhile additions to the science class, which I actually think is one of the strongest classes in games already. But all that being said, I hope you guys have enjoyed today's video. Let me know what you think about Immortal Abomination besides its hideous looks. And yeah, go check out Katie Candy's ability description breakdown video, and I'm gonna catch you guys soon. See ya.